Hi, I'm Erin Meese,
And I'm Kristen Ireland.
and we're the co-founders of Pspod Consulting.
Welcome to our podcast, The People Spark, helping ag leaders step out of the weeds with clarity and confidence.
We'll leave a little spark.
We'll leave a little spark. This is a fun time of year, right? We're getting to the end of the year. For so many of the people that we work with, we just ended harvest not that long ago, so it's been really busy. And we're starting that planning, or in the middle of that planning for 2026. I can't believe I'm saying that already. So, Erin, as you reflect on where we are within the year and within the ag cycle, what's top of mind for you?
So you're absolutely right. Like everything is starting to wind down with harvest. We're getting the last trucks kind of in with grain and whatnot, depending on what a facility has. So for me, top of mind and what I find myself reminding clients regularly right about now is recognition. And it's one of those funny topics because I think for some reason we have started to kind of affiliate recognition with I need to show you in dollars. I need to show you in a gift card. I need to go get some Casey's pizza and make sure that everybody is well fed and that we're celebrating in that way. And the reason I come back to recognition so much is that the thing that is most meaningful oftentimes is that specific thank you and show of appreciation to individual employees, connecting what they've done into the impact that it's had on customers, on other team members, on the business. And we often overlook some of those really, really simple things. What comes to mind for you?
Well, it was interesting as you just said that, and this was not top of mind when we started this episode at all. So we were just working with a business and doing an engagement survey. And engagement surveys are fascinating. And this specific business has done a great job of rewarding employees. I'm going to differentiate reward and recognize. Has done a great job of rewarding employees. That on the survey, people actually talked about the fact that they appreciate kind of what they're paid, their variable pay. Their variable pay is very generous, definitely tied, like very clearly tied to the goals of the business. And still one of the areas that was identified as an opportunity is recognition. So to your point, because there was so much focus on rewards, we start to think of, but I'm doing that. I'm doing that. When the recognition is, how do you make that personal? How do you make that individual? How do you make that specific enough so that somebody can see the impact, that it does truly go beyond rewards? And that's not what has the biggest difference. And now I'm on a roll. We actually did an engagement survey with another client a few years ago. And the first time we did the survey, we did a survey. One of the things that came out was the fact that recognition was an area that people wanted to see more of. So that was the first year we did the survey. That came out as a theme. Second year we did the survey. So we wanted to delve deeper on recognition. And the client wanted to add a question about what types of recognition do you want to receive? Because we hear a lot. We want to make it personal. People want different things. Let's ask them what they want. And I said, okay, I feel like I know what that answer is going to be. We can add that. Let's add another one of what type of recognition have you received in the past year that you feel reflects the work that you've done? So not surprising. And I'm going to say this, you didn't know I was going to share this story, but Erin, do you remember what the number one answer was when people were asked what types of recognition they like to receive?
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Yes, it was money, pay me more, promotion. It was all about money. And yet when we compared that to what type of recognition have you received in the past year that reflects the work that you've done, it was not money. It was personal recognition. And throughout the course of the year, we had actually worked with this group and these leaders to provide some personalized handwritten notes, recognizing the work that people had done. That was the number one response back, was the recognition and handwritten notes that employees were receiving. So we think and people think that it's about the money. And that's always, it's a good, important thing to do. And recognition, to your point, is so much deeper than that. Wow, that was that was the soapbox.
No, I think a lot of times we overlook the impact that good personal
Mhm.
recognition can have and overcomplicate it. And then when we're starting to talk about like additional monetary compensation that can go along with it, now we're turning this into a whole system. We're turning this into something so much more impactful on the bottom line, truly to that business. And we're missing the thing that's right in front of us.
Mhm.
We're missing that opportunity to give that personal recognition. And, I get really on a roll about this throughout the year, but especially this time of year when we know that people have been working long hours. They've missed, some of their kids' events because they're open during harvest. We know that this is part of what happens in the industry. And that opportunity that we have as individual leaders to share the impact that has, not just on the business, but on me as a leader, to know that I can
Mhm.
count on you and know that you're here and that we're going to make sure we get those last few trucks unloaded. I appreciate you. Those are the types of things that really can mean a lot. And in addition to that, too, I think about all of the opportunities that we have throughout the year and certainly throughout harvest, that it takes us actually having to really look for what are the things that people are doing that I want to see them continue to do. Because we're not wired to be looking for the things that are going well. We're wired to be looking for danger, for the safety risk, for the person that's not where they need to be at this time, the person that's on their phone too long. Our attention is getting focused there, not on all of the things that actually are going well. And it's interesting as a leader, and we see this with participants in our program too, that when we start to prompt them to start looking for the things that are going well, it can be really tough for them to do at first.
Mhm.
And because they're not used to looking for it. It's wild. I think of several groups we've had in the last year, and when we've asked them, who on your team is doing what you want them to be doing, right? We're not saying that they have to be the best employee you've ever seen in your entire career. It's who's doing what you want them to do. That is the person to recognize. We don't have to wait for some big event to happen to recognize someone.
Did you know that contrary to what we might think, 96% of employees want feedback, whether it's constructive or recognition? Yet another survey found that only 5% of managers provide critical feedback to employees, even though it's important for their development. What's behind this? Nearly half of managers, 44%, find giving feedback stressful. Nearly a quarter, 21%, avoid giving it altogether. They feel it's uncomfortable, they don't want to demotivate employees, and just aren't sure how to do it. And the repercussions of not giving feedback end up impacting you and your business through lower productivity and profitability, decreased employee engagement, and increased employee turnover. I'm Erin Meese with Pspod Consulting. For the last several years, we've built our business around supporting ag supervisors and managers develop their coaching and feedback skills. Why? Because leaders coaching their teams create more engaged teams. And these more engaged teams create the workplaces that bring more employees into the ag industry. Our leadership transformation program was designed to be straightforward and practical, providing content in digestible chunks, supporting participants through personalized feedback, and providing participants an environment to learn with other ag leaders across the industry. You might only have a couple of managers or supervisors, or you might have an entire team of them. Pspod works with you to find the best solution, whether it's joining an open cohort with other ag leaders or having a customized experience that works across your locations. In order to provide the most customized experience for each of our participants, these cohorts have very limited number of seats available each month. If you're interested in more information around what might work best for you and your team, just click on the link in the show notes below or directly go to developagleaders.com.
We had an in-person session with a client last month and this month. With our leadership development, we start with recognition and how do you really give good, solid recognition because it has such an impact. Oh, we haven't shared our stat. There is a statistic that negative feedback or negative attention is 40 times more powerful than ignoring somebody when building a team environment. So if you want to have a good culture, it is 40 times better, 40 times more effective to give constructive feedback than no feedback at all, which I think is fascinating when we're talking about that in terms of some people being hesitant to share constructive feedback. That like, ooh, I'm afraid, people aren't going to want constructive feedback. And I give somebody constructive feedback, they're going to leave. So there's a lot of hesitancy, or I don't want to demotivate them. There's a lot of hesitancy. So it's important to do that. The interesting part about that stat is it's 30 times more effective to give positive feedback than constructive feedback. So it is 30 times more powerful to say something positive than to focus on the negative, and yet our attention goes to the negative. And then it's 1,200 times more effective, if you do the math, 1,200 times more effective to give positive feedback than ignore somebody. And I know the leaders that we work with, the intent is never to ignore somebody. And yet when we don't notice those behaviors, that's the impact. So while it's not our intent, our impact is that we're ignoring people. So that's why we start with the importance of giving good, solid recognition first. And in this first in-person session, I was working with the leaders to identify what are the behaviors that you want to see from your team. If somebody is doing something well and you're excited about it, what do you want to see? And it took a little bit to draw that out. And then I said, okay, now who does this well? And the team struggled with that. And one of their leaders said, come on, we know that there are people that are doing this well. We know that there are. So it was interesting because we started that conversation there, and then we started to draw it out more. We reaffirmed it when we went back again, and there was so much more. It was like that focus it turned the faucet from a drip to a true flow, and it created so much more. So as we talked about recognition, it was flowing even better. We took it to the next step in that activity of, now that we know that, let's write a handwritten note. By the way, those are two different businesses, two different clients that we're talking about. And now we're starting to hear the impact of the employees who are getting that handwritten note. But it goes back to that, you don't notice it at first. And it takes somebody really prompting you to think about it and being very intentional on what those behaviors are.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long
Absolutely.
way to reinforce your point. It's a long story
Thank
to
you
get to that.
for reinforcing it. Yeah.
I tried.
Well, and one thing I think is helpful to share as well, that in recognition, one of the things that we have seen that I didn't expect to see in recognition is how frequently, when leaders will start practicing recognition or start a coaching conversation with the intent of giving recognition, that the employee themselves doesn't know what to do, and it creates this very awkward encounter with the supervisor, because the supervisor, right, saying, hey, I want to talk to you for a moment, right? Your first thought is warning bells. Oh my gosh, this is it, right? Something's going down. And it takes a moment even just to get into a space where as an employee, you're thinking, okay, they actually want to talk to me about something. And when that supervisor is giving recognition, how frequently, especially in this industry, how frequently the response from an employee is, I was just doing my job, or kind of shrugging it off, or, oh, it's just part of it. I just, not necessarily taking credit for the work that they did. And that shrugging off creates some awkwardness then for the supervisor to continue on with the coaching conversation. And so we've turned it into more of a challenge over the years of, in those moments, I want you paying attention to body language and paying attention to how body language shifts through that discussion, where it might be kind of shrugging off at the beginning, or like not really knowing how to accept this or take it in, to noticing that they're smiling more, noticing that their shoulders actually relax a little bit further, noticing that when they go back to their workstation, they're going back and they're getting started on something else. They're helping encourage someone else to do something too. So paying attention to just the impact that giving that recognition can have, it's so much fun. And I could pull up, thinking about homework assignments over the years too, with that self-reflection of supervisors saying how frequently they were even getting responsive. I didn't know that anybody noticed that I did that. Or like, yeah, I took care of that. And then they're suggesting more and more ideas of other things that they think they can do. And so there's such an
Mhm.
opportunity all around us, especially right now where things are getting finished. We've got a nice time to kind of wrap everything up with a little bow, and to also think through about those employees who we may have given some constructive coaching to throughout the season, right? We've got a one client I was working with just the other day, and they had had a coaching conversation with an employee. And I was asking them about it the other day just to say, how did that go? What are you seeing? And they're saying, oh, yeah, it seemed to go on really well. Here's what we're seeing performance wise. And I said, this right now, this is your moment to go back and make sure that you are recognizing them for taking action on what you talked with them about. So this is another one of those moments for recognition. So it's almost like moments of recognition are as we're finishing a season, we're wanting to make sure people really see their impact. And another moment for recognition is when we're starting to see the first evidence that somebody is acting on that constructive feedback that we've given them.
I want to step back there because you said something and I envision listeners going, what? What? You said when I reflect back on homework assignments. And I'm sure
Mhm.
somebody went, what are you talking about in relation to homework?
What?
So a little background information on that. As part of our leadership development program, there is the learning the skills and the tools, and then there's applying the skills and tools. And so through that process, as people learn, they're completing application assignments or homework.
Mhm.
And then we provide feedback on that. And so it's really thinking through how do you give really effective feedback, giving feedback from a coach in our program on that. And to me, one of the most important parts is now let's reflect on that situation. And as you were leading up to that, it reminded me here's one of Erin and I get super excited. And when we read assignments and we see something that really makes our day, we share it with the others. And I remember it was probably 3 years ago, Erin, you did an assignment. It was you were giving feedback on assignment. It was on a coaching and recognition one. And the person's reflection was, I didn't realize how much this was a culture defining moment.
Yeah.
And we talked about culture in one of the very first episodes, that it was that, oh, this is what defines culture. That moment was what really reinforced it. And I remember Erin sending me a message of like, this is my day maker. This is my day maker, because it truly is. That is
Mhm.
your culture defining moment. The other thing I was reflecting on as you talk about that is, yes, we hear that response from employees of like, I was just doing my job or wasn't a big deal. In that initial, because it feels awkward. What we also hear is from leaders saying, well, I don't need that. I'm not aware. I don't think about it because I don't need that. I feel good about my own kind of intrinsic recognition. I know that I've done well. I don't need that extrinsic recognition. Those are big words for me today, by the way. Intrinsic, extrinsic. That I don't need that. And so I don't think about it for others. And I reflect even on, because a lot of times we talk about it in terms of that generation. And I was of the quote unquote generation that doesn't need that. And sure, I may not need that, but it feels really good when I get it. So kind of thinking about that in terms of, just because I don't need it myself doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it and enjoy it. And how can we make that? How can we remove that kind of paradigm and perspective so we start to see people more?
Yeah. Well, I think of it as, if I want to continue this behavior, if I want to see this kind of effort continue, I need to be able to notice it and let people know that they're doing what I want them to do. There was a fabulous article in, gosh, I want to say summer of 24, that I came across, and I'll have to dig it up and figure out how we can also link it in to show notes. Um, and it addressed what I think is kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to recognition, specifically that it feels, Kristen, around like that I didn't need that myself. So it can feel then, if I am of that mindset, that it's like that it's ego stroking for the other person. That, oh, I just have to say nice things so that they can, right? So that they just do this. And it feels manipulative in that way that I'm doing this to stroke their egos and to make them feel good. And what this article challenged in a really, really helpful way, I thought, was to look at it in terms of the safety that it creates for the employee. That recognition is a way of indicating to your employee that you are doing the right thing. And this is the thing I want to see more of because you are safe in the sense that you're not kind of going into the ditches on your own, and also providing the I see you, I notice you, and I'm acknowledging the fact that you are doing the thing that I want you to continue. And it for me was such a helpful paradigm shift that, especially for those of us where it does feel like it can be ego stroking, if it's starting to feel disingenuous, then don't do it because that will come across in your recognition. If you're looking at it in terms of, hey, I noticed that you stayed a little bit later last night to make sure that we got those last 2 trucks unloaded. The impact that it had, right? The customers were able to get back on time and get finished and not have to wait any longer. And it helped us this morning because we weren't already backed up to begin with, right? Thank you. I appreciate you. And that can be as far as it goes. What we're doing in that recognition is letting that person know that that is what I want you to do. You did the right thing. Please continue to do that right thing.
And I think the example of what you did there. So one of the other things that we hear a lot from leaders as they're going through this is, I already do this. I already thank my team. And they do. And a lot of it is more surface. Thank you. Great job today. I appreciate your hard work. That the power comes when it is much more specific and much more personal about what behaviors they did. So when you're saying things like, thanks, great job, good work, keep it up, it feels more disingenuous. Ingenuous. It doesn't feel genuine. That's how I'm going to address that. It doesn't feel genuine because it's superficial. So
Right.
You shared the specific examples. Talk through a little bit about what are some of the examples that we see of what people kind of say in general, and then how to make it more specific to the behaviors that you're seeing, and how specific do you go? Because I even think about the one that we talk about a lot is you have a positive attitude. I don't know what that means.
You take initiative.
So, yeah. Okay. Yep. Thanks. So how do you make those even more specific so people do feel seen, heard, valued?
Right. The key word for all of our podcast episodes, I think, so far has been specificity. And so it's if we're feeling as though somebody takes initiative or they have a positive attitude, it's asking yourself the question of what specifically are you seeing from them that leads you to believe that they're taking initiative? What specifically are you seeing that leads you to believe that they have a positive attitude? And it's getting granular and being okay with that down to, almost picture if you are a sports commentator and you are broadcasting a football game or a basketball game. You are having to get into specifics around this person passed the ball to here, right? You have to speak in that level of detail. And that's what we're looking for you to do in your recognition so that somebody knows that, okay, because I did this behavior, this is the type of thing they want to continue. So for that person who took initiative, it's you took the time to call 2 of our growers to see if they were coming in with their last truck tonight without being asked, right? You did that without being asked. The impact was we were able to know how much later we needed to stay open to receive those last couple of trucks and get them on their way. It also gave some clarity to our team to know how many people we needed so that not everybody had to just wait around for maybe if we needed them, right? Thank you. Like, this is exactly the kind of thing that I want to see continue.
Well, and as you talk about specificity, for me, I love the sports analogy. Nicely done. Of you're a sports
Thanks.
commentator, you're actually giving the facts of what you see. That level of specificity is so important because the point is, it needs to be specific enough that the person knows what exact behavior you want them to repeat going forward.
Right.
And when you say great attitude, I'm not sure how to repeat that. Or if you're saying you took initiative, I'm not sure what that means. Is it a great attitude? Could be that specific behavior is when you complete your work, you're checking in with your team to see if anybody needs help. Initiative
Hmm.
could be when you complete something, you are going to find the next thing without being told or without being asked. You look for the next thing that needs to be done. So that level of specificity, and that's how I like to think about it of do I know what I need to do? Do I know what next step I would need to take to be able to do that again?
Hmm.
The other thing that you've really hit on, which to me is so powerful, is you talk about the impact of it. So can you talk a little bit more about the power of including that when you're providing recognition?
Absolutely. So when we start giving recognition, this also works for constructive feedback, but that's for another episode or two. So as we start peeling back the layers to know what specific behaviors it is that we're recognizing, we can do that fairly easily. Sometimes it takes us a little bit of time just to get into that rhythm of, okay, that's the specific behavior I'm talking about. What's next is kind of to make that recognition even more powerful is talking about what impact did that have on you, on the customer, on the business, on our performance, on the rest of the team. And it goes beyond kind of saying, hey, great job on doing that behavior. It connects it back to and helps that person see how they're making a difference on the team or on their customers or on the business around them. And if you remember from one of our previous episodes, I talked about how, right, 44% of American workers don't know how the work they do every day impacts the business. This helps us to connect those dots for people where they might not otherwise see that this actually did something, right? I was talking with a leader last week and we were talking about some recognition that she was going to give. And there was a team member who is really good at thinking about designing and taking action right away on getting end caps set up. And she's got a good, a good design idea that comes up frequently. And then she just goes and takes action on it. And it's great. We want to recognize that. What I was talking with this leader about was, what have you been seeing as a result of it? And it was, well, actually, they're getting shopped more, right? We're turning over some of those products more frequently, right? And so it's okay. That is part of your recognition for that team member because, right? Otherwise, all of this product is hidden somewhere else in an aisle. You've made this visible. And as a result, it's working. Like it's turning over. We're seeing the impact of it because of that action that you took.
Well, and I love in that example, you tying it back to the goals of the business, right? The bigger picture of what we're
Hmm.
trying to accomplish. So you're making that clear. I think in so many ways too, how it impacts working with others and working with people. I'll use the example that I did before of you finished your work and then you went and you asked your team members. Well, you ended up supporting this person to complete their work. I don't know if you knew it. Their daughter was actually had an event that night. And because you did that, they were able to go to attend that event. Oh,
Right.
God, whoa. Because people don't necessarily know that. Or even the feeling, we go to speaking events a lot and trainings. And one of the examples I say is, who is your employee who's back in your facility right now? Well, you're here, they're back there, and you can concentrate today because you know everything is being covered. Who is that person and what is it that they're doing? And then to think about the impact is, I know that I can go to this session And I will be able to focus. I won't have to worry about what's happening here, that I feel confident leaving because I know you're here and what you're going to be doing. I mean, how much is that a feel good? Oh, I didn't think about it that way. And yet we are feeling those feelings of leaders of, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness that
Right.
that person is here. It's communicating that so that they know that.
Mhm.
So yes, tying it to the goals. Yes, tying it to the culture, kind of how I said that before of this is a culture defining moment because you're reinforcing the behaviors that you want to see in your culture, and tying it to really the impact that it has on the people that they work with, because a lot of times that has the biggest impact altogether. Have we shared your basketball example on the podcast? Because we talk about it a lot. I can't remember if we've talked about it
Oh,
on the podcast.
I don't think we have. I don't think we have. So I think
I
it was
mean,
a good
even if we
call.
have, I think it's a good enough story to list twice. So
Yeah. So last year I had an opportunity to be one of the assistant coaches of my daughter's third grade basketball team. And so I'm just gonna let that sink in for a moment. Because it was hilarious. It was some hard work and it was kind of utter chaos in other moments too. And our listeners might know this already. At this age, at 9 years old, 8, 9 years old, third grade basketball players aren't always the best ball handlers. And they might pick up their dribble when they have the ball. And what we're teaching them at this age is that if you pick up your dribble, right, you have only a couple of options. At this point, you have to shoot, really hope you're close to the basket, you have to pass, because if you dribble again, it's going to be a turnover. It's a double dribble and it goes against you. The other team gets the ball back. And in one of our games last year, this is, halfway to towards the end of the season even. One of our girls, it was her very first year playing basketball. She had never played before that. And she's a tiny, tiny player. And she was this person that showed up every single game, every single practice, biggest smile on her face. She is just trying her hardest every single game. And she's in. And what we notice is that the girl that she is defending keeps picking her ball up. And so we tell our player, we said, listen, she keeps picking her dribble up. When you are guarding her, just go in and put your hands on the ball. Put your hands on the ball, try to force a jump ball with her. And she's like, okay, okay. And a few plays go by. Her girl has the ball. Her girl picks her dribble up. And here she goes. She puts her hands on the ball and she's holding on for dear life. The referee stops, calls a jump ball. And in this case, the other team still got possession of the ball because that was just how it was. But our player, she did exactly what we wanted her to be doing. That was exactly right. And so the coaches, we are losing our minds. We're excited. We're cheering. We're like, oh my gosh, you did it. I'm so excited. And at the end of the quarter, we have to make a lineup change. So she comes out. And again, I don't know why to this day I asked this question, and I'm so glad I did. And I said, oh, you did so great out there. Oh my gosh. Do you know what a jump ball is? And she looked at me and she had the biggest smile on her face and she just shook her head and she's like, no, I don't. And then I asked some of the other players and I said, do you guys know what a jump ball is? And they said, no. Like, oh my goodness. Right? I've been playing for more than 30 years. The other coaches, they've been playing for equally as long. It's just something that's so normal and natural for us that you don't even think about it. So we stopped and we explained. We said, okay, it changes possession of the ball. Watch the referee move their hair tie or whatever bracelet they have on their hand that shows who has possession of it. That's why we want you to put your hands on the ball, because it might not always go in our favor. More often than not, we're going to get ourselves into a position where we have a chance to get the ball back. So yeah, how frequently, bringing it back to recognition, how frequently are we so excited that somebody does something? And yet if we were to stop and ask the question, they might not have any idea how or why that's important. Yeah, that was like such a defining moment.
Before we end our show, let me leave you with a question. What would it feel like to leave the office every day, not just knowing that your managers and supervisors had everything under control, but that you were confident that the direction they were giving your team members was creating and reinforcing the kind of great culture in your business that the entire community talked about? The kind of culture where customers went out of their way to work with you instead of the competition because they were cared for, consistent, and kind. If that sounds like the ag business you've always wanted, stick with me for just another minute. Too many ag business owners and general managers, yes, even the big ones, find themselves stuck. They're juggling customer questions that their leaders should be able to handle and somehow ending up as the bottleneck of decision-making in their own business. It feels like they can never get out of the day-to-day long enough to develop their talent, their business, and their own future. Sound familiar? You've worked hard to get where you are, but staying stuck here isn't sustainable. Not only that, it's costing you time, energy, and future growth. The good news, you don't have to figure this out all alone. That's why we offer you the opportunity to schedule a free culture development session. This no obligation, no pressure call is your chance to explore whether our programs are the right fit for you. Our programs have helped ag businesses across the U.S. like you to build great work teams and cultures, retain great employees, and develop plans for your business's success, all while freeing up more time for you. When you schedule your free culture development session, here's what you'll get: a personalized conversation with an expert advisor who's seen firsthand what it takes to break through barriers and achieve the culture and outcomes you're seeking. The opportunity to see how our programs can help you define your business and people strategies, and actionable insights tailored to your goals so you can start moving towards the business you've always envisioned. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start building the ag business you deserve, here's what to do next. Visit this link in the show notes and book your free culture development session today. Don't wait, the next big breakthrough might be just one conversation away. Thanks for listening to today's episode.
I love Erin terms it, where do we see HR in the wild? Of every day we see some of those moments where you're like, oh, God, there's where it showed up. There's where it showed up again. Sometimes it's also even asking the person.
Mm-hmm.
I am meeting with a client coming up this next week, and we're talking about, okay, here are the goals for the year. What steps have we taken? What have we done to help us achieve these goals? Which is a little outside of the here, let's provide recognition. And it's I want people to think about that. That is the connection that we do that.
Right.
So sometimes we don't even need, when we're sharing specific feedback and we want to acknowledge that, we want to make sure to include the impact because we want people to know how much we value them. Sometimes in general conversations, it's also ask to see if they see the impact. Because either one, they're not going to see it and it's an opportunity to talk about it. Or two, they're going to create that connection themselves. And then when it goes into the future, they'll start asking them that question.
Exactly.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to share, so you shared, it feels a little awkward when people start to give feedback. And so employees are like, oh, where are you going with this? Am I in trouble, right? There's that hesitation. We have had people say in our sessions, that doesn't sound like me. If I start doing this with my team, they're going to think that I'm being told to do this, that this is something that I need to do. And that came up in in that session that we talked about where we did handwritten thank you notes. And somebody said, when I give this to the person, they're going to be like, you were required to do this in training, weren't you? And we said, okay. That is a very realistic possibility. You know your team better than others. How do you respond to that? And one of the other participants said, yes, and I chose you because I appreciate what you do. And that's what it is. Like, yeah, okay, so yes, we did this as a part of activity. You were the person that came top of mind to me. We even have people say that in terms of the sarcastic, if I start giving them feedback in this way, I'm going to get a sarcastic like, ooh, what training did you go to? To which people can say, you know what, I am working on, I want to have a good team environment. I want to have a good culture. I want to make sure that you know that I appreciate you. So yes, I am going to a training and I am working on it. And as part of that, I want to make sure you know how much I appreciate you. So there isn't even it's kind of a twofer, because when
Mhm.
they do respond back with, that snarky, what training did you go to? There is yep, I'm working on it. How's it going?
Yeah. How am I doing?
Because it highlights that. Yes. So, and those are very real feelings and very real statements that people hear. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
People are noticing something different.
And it takes some time to get into that habit, right? Because we are so used to looking for what's not going well that for
Hmm.
us to get into the habit of seeing, identifying what specific thing it was, the
Hmm.
impact that it had, and then saying something to our employee about that, it takes a little bit of getting used to. And so it can feel awkward those first few
Hmm.
instances where you're saying it, which is why we encourage so much when you're giving recognition to really pay attention and lock in on the body language that you're seeing from the other person, not just in the interaction, but also afterward. What are you noticing about it? And to continue, when you're seeing somebody doing what you want them to do, you're acknowledging it. It doesn't have to be a whole sit down, half-hour long conversation. It could be looking somebody in the eye and addressing very quickly. It can have a really meaningful impact on not just their day, but even in just the work that they're doing.
One final kind of another way you can use this is thinking about, so many organizations and businesses right now are doing performance reviews at the end of the year. Um,
Mhm.
and so I joke that it's the most wonderful time of the year because it's performance review time. Not everybody feels that way. Um, but getting this level of specificity, because how many performance reviews have I read where it's very general comments, improvement needed here, or great job here, thanks for a great year, looking forward to next year, right? Write what you just said. You did
Right.
this. Here's the impact. Thank you. Looking forward to next year. That added maybe 2 sentences, maybe, that is going to have a bigger impact. So, thinking about it in terms of, we just finished a busy time. I want to make sure people are recognizing that, and that and that people know that I appreciate them for doing that. And you can incorporate that into your ongoing processes to have a bigger impact.
Yeah. And one thing I would bring it back to too is the Frederick Bachman quote of right, culture isn't what you say, it's what you allow.
Love
Really
that quote.
plays in right and it plays in here that if we want this type of culture where people understand what to do, they're happy about doing it, they understand the impact on it, then we have to make sure that what we are doing is allowing for that. And we do that by recognizing those behaviors as we're seeing them.
Yes. So we've covered a lot of ground. What's your
Hmm.
spark? I have a guess what I think your spark is. What's your spark?
Yeah. So mine has like multiple bullet points for it being one is
It's a spark umbrella with multiple
right.
things
It's
underneath.
notice, right? To experiment and play with this. Go look today. What are you seeing that you want to see continue? Get specific. So, good attitude or great initiative is not specific enough. What are the behaviors that you see from somebody that leads you to believe that they have those characteristics? And go deliver that feedback and watch. So, multiple bullets, one spark.
My guess was going to be specific. So it was included as part of that. And I think so. I think you covered what my sparks would be in your spark umbrella. Um, I want to lay down a challenge. How many times do we want somebody to do this? In the next week, I did challenge one of our leadership cohorts. We're working with a business, and we just talked about recognition. I laid out the challenge that they have to do one a day.
Mhm.
Which is more than what we usually do. Sometimes we do two. So, what do we want our challenge to be for the podcast listeners?
I would say deliver 3 pieces of feedback in the next 7 days
Hmm.
and email us about it, and we will send
Oh,
you a fabulous prize.
oh, yes. Oh, I love prizes. Okay. So you can email either of us. Emails are in show notes. As a background, Erin is Erin@peoplesparkconsulting.com. Just to be clear, that's ERIN. Erin@peoplesparkconsulting.com. I am Kristen, KRISTEN, for that. And yes, if you email us, include your address
3 examples.
and impact. Like what was
Mhm.
the
What did you
reflection
notice?
afterwards? Yes. Okay. Oh, I love giving prizes.
I know. Well, it's a good topic to give prizes for.
Did you realize then we'd be recognizing people for recognizing people?
Hey, sometimes it all just works
That's
out
what it
that way.
takes.
This has been the People Spark Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation.
The best way to support us is to like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
More on People Spark Consulting can be found at peoplesparkconsulting.com.
People Spark Podcast is produced by the amazing team at Texture House Sound and Visuals.